Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks. First and TED with Aaron Lavigan and myself. So we got Aaron from at 49ers First Takes, Ted from TED Talks Ball, and together we are First and TED coming to you live on Wednesdays, 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We both are wearing black hats today, mourning the loss of the Niners on Sunday in the NFC Championship game. Aaron, tell people what you're up to. And obviously you got the NWO show on Monday, great show. And then the yet named Friday show that you do with Beto Wolf and Amin the Dream. And who am I forgetting on that show? There's a fifth.
We tend to invite.
Kelts comes in too.
No, Kelts was there originally, but he had to back out. But we tend to invite Raj a lot. He's like our unofficial.
Right.
He's our unofficial other member. He's like
it's a good pitch hitter, I'd say.
He's a very good pitch hitter. He's a stable mind and a guy who has, he has access to things that we don't. So anytime he could share any tidbit of information that we don't have privy to, it's always good. Yeah, I'm still mentally not moving on to the off season and people talking about the combine and all this other stuff. Like, the season ended so unfairly, and I'm not complaining about the Eagles. I'm just sad that we never had a puncher's chance. Once Brock went down, it was done. So they pretty much won a game against a team with no quarterback. So, but in the end, it's, if it was us in the same position and we knocked out two quarterbacks, we would just have to do the same thing. So no hate on them for doing that. I know a lot of their fans are a little bit vocal and disrespectful and just kind of slimy people, but it is what it is, man. It's we almost, 3 days later, it is just a game. It's not the end of the world. It's not somebody losing their life, but it still sucks.
It definitely stings a lot. I was sharing with you backstage that we're on the exact same page with that. As soon as Purdy went down, the game was over. Part of it, hope lingered for a little while because, they kept kind of teasing us with like, oh, can Brock come back in? And then there was this thought of the watch party where I was like, well, if we have all these great weapons and we got Kyle, can we just get the offense to limp along enough and maybe the defense can score, something like that? And then, Josh Johnson gets the concussion and it's just like, oh, yeah, 2 QBs in one game. That's great. So pretty brutal. And made more brutal by Eagles fans. I think you might have just mentioned this, like pretending like, oh, they had some superior game plan or that they're by far the better team when, basically the game has an asterisk. They get the W, but I don't think they actually beat us, if you know what I mean. Like they didn't beat the 49ers team that got there. And, congratulations on going to the Super Bowl, but I don't think it's any ringing endorsement for their team. I think it would have been close. And I picked us to win the game 21-20. And I think it would have been a lot closer if our D got rested, if they didn't get demoralized, knowing that their offense couldn't score, couldn't possess the ball to keep the ball out of the Eagles' offense hand. They had a huge time of possession advantage against us.
Yeah, and the Niners really, if any team could have used the bye this year, it could have been the 49ers. I think it would have been super important to have that game in our building. But, it was a good season. It was a great season up until that game. And I had full confidence once I saw how the defense was playing that this could be a game where the Niners could steal away from Philly. And this didn't happen. He got injured, and that was the end of the day. I think the worst part about it is a lot of us believe that he might actually come back in the game, that maybe he just got like a stinger in his elbow. Maybe he lost feeling for a second. I thought he hit his hand on the helmet, so maybe he whacked his finger on the helmet or something. But when I saw the replay of his elbow going backwards, I'm like, that's not going to be good. And sure enough, he never came. He came back in, but once I saw that they were just handing it off all the time, I lost complete interest in that game. I was watching it, but I was more like watching it like, oh, I got to take mental notes for when I do a stream tomorrow. That's all I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about, because why would you want to go to the Super Bowl with no quarterbacks? Like that would be such a lame You think you're handing it to them in the NFC Championship game? You go against a team like Kansas City, you're gonna get your brains beat in. It's already hard enough against them with a full squad, let alone no quarterback. So, um, it was just a very very just anticlimactic end of the season, and people saying that Kyle's a choker. I don't know. That's just weak. It's just like weak stuff. It's like people look for clicks just to see if somebody will agree with them, so they could justify putting out a stupid. And it's not just on YouTube. It's people on Twitter. It's people on Facebook. There was a guy on Facebook in a group that I'm in saying that Kyle should. I'd rather have Jim Tom Sula. I'm just like you know. I don't know. Some people like.
I saw somebody tweet it out. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. Well, I know the person that I know that tweeted out. It was meant tongue in cheek.
Okay.
If people attacked him. It was kind of funny, but at the same time, kind of messed up. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and then, didn't help that the refs were calling more calls against us.
Oh, the officiating was so bad on Sunday in both games.
Then they had, for the regular season by far. And there was just a lot of weird things going on with the play clock, with false starts by the Eagles tackles.
Which were never called.
Josh Johnson's speakers in his helmet malfunctioning on a big play when we were still in it. There's a lot of stuff. Obviously, right off the bat, the Devonta Smith catch down the sideline that was clearly not a catch.
Not even close.
The replay angle that Kyle, could have used to dispute the play, to throw the red challenge flag, didn't show up until after the TD and the commercial break after the TD, and then it shows up. It's like, oh, magically there it is. So that was interesting. 100%. Just want to call out Raphael 562 in the house. Also, Bryant Culp.
What up, Bryant?
Raphael was saying just bad luck, and Josh Johnson fumble was the nail in the coffin. That was real bad to end the first half. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't over because it was 21-7 at that point. And then we got the kickoff in the second half. So if we had gone and scored a TD and made it 21-14, you got a ball game again. So, I mean, it was awful. And I guess maybe it ended up being that. But at the time, I would say it wasn't. It wasn't until we didn't convert anything on the first drive of the second half. That's when I was just like, oh, this is not going to go well. And, of course, the Eagles went right down and scored to make it 28-7. Saying hope Purdy has a speedy recovery for him through 2 passes with no arm.
Yeah, they got to do something about that rule, Ted. They have to let you have another quarterback in the playoffs. That kind of doesn't count or against the roster, or they just should give you an extra roster spot. I mean, that's just regardless if we would have won or not, the fact that an injured guy who had a completely disconnected elbow ligament has to come in. I have nothing to say to the league about that. That isn't going to be nice.
So like Eason or Banker or somebody we had on the roster, because it would need to be somebody who knew the plays, because even if you bring in somebody talented, if they don't know the plays, that's not going to do you a lot of good either.
Right. And the whole thing of Jimmy Garoppolo, I thought he'd be ready for the NFC Championship game, but that didn't happen. I never thought I'd say this though. I said, if we would have made it to the Super Bowl and Jimmy would have been available, how would people have felt? And if he would have helped us win, how much crow would people have to eat? I would have loved to have eaten a ton of crow.
Me too.
But it didn't happen. And unfortunately, that was what I was thinking. I was like, what if somehow we sneak in and then Jimmy's a quarterback next week? But the Eagles put a quick end to that. But your mind wanders sometimes. You try to be positive, and then eventually, when the score got to a certain point, I'm like, yeah. See you next year, guys. We're going home.
Yeah, pretty much. When it got to be 28-7, and they were just grinding the clock. They weren't even trying to score anymore. They were just trying to grind the clock.
Which is weird coming from Sirianni. I was waiting for him to put like a 50 burger.
Well, and they were smart not to, because they just didn't take any risks. That's when our D lost all their composure and got frustrated, and we started seeing the Dre Greenlaw penalties, and obviously the kerfuffle with Trent Williams.
My man.
They got him ejected. That was
my man.
It was good and bad to see, I guess.
No, it was
Good
bad,
parts.
but at the same time, the flaring temper that I have inside of me, I probably would have done the exact same thing and would have been worth the ejection. Taking a little
I,
skinny DB and just like pile driving him into the ground would have been nice.
yeah, I did it one time during a broom ball game. The high school I went to got challenged by another high school to a broom ball game, and the other high school had practiced and knew what the hell they were doing, and my high school we had never played before, so we got out there and they're passing it around and they're scoring and they know what they're doing, and I think we had all been drinking quite a bit, and finally one guy had the ball and I got up ahead of steam towards him and he passed it away and I just was like, nah, too bad, and I just leveled him, and all of a sudden there was this huge melee, about 20 guys all fighting each other on the ice. It was brutal, but yeah, I could see myself maybe doing something like that.
I did that to my brother.
Frustrations get high enough.
I did that to my brother back when we were. I was a teenager and my brother was a young teenager. So if I was he was probably like 11 or 10, 11. I was like 17. I don't know. We were playing backyard basketball with the a group of guys on my basketball hoop at my place. And I suck at basketball. My brother was way better and way younger than me. And every time he would jay me, everyone would go, "Oh, Aaron got oh." So eventually I just, as my brother is going to take the shot, I just sucker punched him right in the gut. And to this day, my brother always drills on me for that. He's like, "Dude, you have such a..." I was like, "I'm not like that anymore." But yeah, he was hitting shots on me left and right, and all the guys were just cracking on me for sucking and stuff. Yeah, oh my God, dude, I punched him straight in the gut, knockout Tyson style. And wasn't my proudest moment, but it just, I have it in me to be that guy if I get really mad. I do have a little bit of a hair trigger temper. I've gotten better in recent years because I'm a lot older, but it's always there. And so when I saw Trent Williams do that, I was a little proud of him.
Yeah, like I said, it was good and bad. Not what you want to see, losing your composure, but like I think we all could understand how he was feeling and relate, because I think we were all feeling the same way. Very frustrated with the situation. That wasn't really our fault and wasn't due to lack of play or lack of game plan or anything like that. It just was really horrible luck to have those injuries. So Bryant was saying, if we made it to the Super Bowl, could we have signed a QB off the couch? I think we could have. One name that came to mind for me was, wasn't Derek Carr waived by the Raiders? Wasn't he just kind of out there in no man's land?
I have no idea.
I don't know if he would have had to go through waivers, or what's waivers when there's only 2 teams left. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know the answer to that either. I think we probably could have. And I think, I said in my article, I think Kyle would have signed somebody better than Josh Johnson if right when Jimmy got hurt, he knew that neither Jimmy nor Lance were going to be able to come back, at least until the NFC Championship game. Maybe Jimmy would have been back to the Super Bowl, but maybe. It's not even worth talking about because we didn't make it. But, I think right when Jimmy went down, there was hope that Jimmy might be back for the wild card game. I think that's a 6 to 8 week injury. That was 6 weeks. And so, or maybe even 7 weeks. So, and then with Lance, if he hadn't had to have that hardware out, like he was definitely going to be ready to start practicing. I would say, I think he had that revision surgery right when he was supposed to start practicing. Like he was having issues and couldn't start practicing. Like, okay, we got to get this hardware taken out. Then if you can't practice, then we got to deal with it sooner rather than later. So I think that if we knew that back then, I think we would have found somebody better than Josh Johnson. But there gets to be a point where even as bad as Josh Johnson is, like he's better than a better quarterback, a more talented quarterback, I should say, who doesn't know the playbook, because Josh Johnson at least knew the system. So anyway, but it's hard to imagine anybody looking worse than Josh Johnson did on Sunday. It was pretty pathetic, especially that fumble that was right on target. And just some of his weak efforts were really embarrassing, I thought. Raphael is asking who's going to be our defensive coordinator. Well, right now we're talking to, Bryant brought up Fangio. That's one of the options. I also saw Steve Wilkes,
Yep.
the interim coach from the Panthers, who I think was their defensive coordinator before that.
Chris Harris.
Also, Chris Harris, which is the one I like because he's a great defensive back. And I think he would help our DBs. And we're going to need some help at DB, right? I mean, we're probably going to lose. We're probably going to lose Jimmy Ward. We might lose Emmanuel Mosley. Gibson is a free agent too. I believe Tarvarius Moore is as well. Not that he really plays, but he's somebody who could play if we were to lose a lot of players. And unless Emmanuel Mosley has a full recovery, we might be needing a new cornerback too to go across from Mooney Ward, and we'll probably need a nickel, assuming that we can sign Gibson at a reasonable rate.
Yeah, well, it's going to be.
Sorry, I was just going to say maybe Samuel Womack will fill in at nickel. He's flashed some.
It would be interesting because Kyle made a point today to say that he wasn't fond on bringing somebody in who would have to change the whole scheme around. He kind of likes running what we run. That's a question. Can Fangio be a little bit like a multi? Can he be multi in his defensive stuff, or is he strictly 3-4? So that'll be interesting. To me, if I had to pick anybody, it would be Fangio, of course, and then maybe Wilkes, and then we're not going to get a lot of roster turnover for the most part, and we'll definitely talk about what I think we need soon because I seen some things during the season that just made me more and more clear of what we need. But yeah, I hope Fangio is the guy. If not, it's Wilkes. I'm always okay with a little bit of a wrinkle put into a defense if someone else is brought on board. You know what I'm saying? Because it's nice to kind of throw teams off when you think like, okay, we're facing strictly blank. So I'm just mentally, I said, I'm not ready to go into off-season mode, man. I still want us to play more, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Do what you got to do. I just want to say hi to Steve Supremo. He's saying, I want Sherm, knows the scheme and a player's player. Hadn't heard of Sherm being considered, but my God, he's smart enough. And I think he would be a good coach. I just don't know how quickly he's going to want to get out of that cushy booth that he's in that pays more and has less hours. And it'd be interesting to see. I would totally be open to that. And we'll ask Aaron when he's ready what he thinks.
Yeah, Sherm to me would be a good. I wouldn't necessarily make him a defensive coordinator, like Steve said, but maybe start him as a defensive backs coach, somewhere where I think he could serve really well. But you're right. He's got a really cushy job where he doesn't have to spend, all day and all night working on no sleep just to come back to do it all over again, just so you could, lose at the end of the year. Is it worth it? Plus, I'm sure he's got enough of, blank you money to have to not worry about that. But that in my mind, that would be a good move for like I said, like a DB coach. It's always
I think Chris Harris already has some coaching experience, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Didn't Chris Harris play?
Yeah, he was a Chargers DB, cornerback, and then he went somewhere else after the Chargers.
I feel like he played on the Commanders at some point in his career.
Maybe that was a couple years ago,
or that was a different Chris Harris. There was the one that was back in the day.
I mean, it's a fairly common name, so could be. I don't know. That's interesting. I was going to say, you probably just want Fangio because he's a Paisan. So
Yeah, he is a Paisan. He actually reminds me of my Uncle Tony. He looks completely miserable. Has zero. You never see Fangio smile ever. And I'm like, it's right up my alley of my mom's family. It's like everybody looks super miserable and mean. That's why people are like, why does Aaron, have such like this kind of curmudgeon-y negative attitude? It's my genetics, man. It's the Italian in me.
It's built in.
Yeah, Fangio would be awesome. I love his last
Nature
name.
and nurture.
Yeah, it's the need to be close to the Sicilian side of my family. So like Fangio would be the perfect fit. Yeah, but I just liked him because he was just a kick freaking butt defensive coordinator.
Yeah. No, he was really good. The issue with Fangio though is the 3-4-D, and Bosa is like the quintessential 4-3 defensive
Defensive
end.
end, yeah.
I don't want him, as an outside
No,
linebacker
it's he
having
could
to
get
get stuck
get
in
hurt.
coverage.
And he's gonna get hurt.
Yeah, and or just he just isn't using him as his best. He's okay at coverage, but that's not.
Could you
you
use
want
him in
him
like an elephant
chase.
position, like they used to use Charles Haley,
I guess.
where you'd
is
have
that a
you'd have
3-4
him.
too?
I think the Niners ran a 3-4 with Haley.
Okay.
But Haley would line up on the line. He wouldn't be in a stance. I think they used to call that the elephant. I'm not sure. Somebody who knows football.
I
Did
could
the
swear
Niners run the elephant
elephant
position?
was 4-3, but I
It's
think that's
hard
what
to
Bosa
remember
plays.
because remember they had Michael Carter, and Michael Carter was a nose, right?
Yes.
So we had Kevin Fagan. Was it Michael Carter? Was it Pierce Holt? I'm trying to think of the main three that were down.
I remember Pierce Holt. There's so many names. I mean, I remember the early days, like, with Montana and stuff, like early Montana days with like Fred Dean and Stuckey and a few of those guys. But God, it's all. I would need to go back and look through it.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
I was born in
about it.
'79, so like I would say the first 6, 7, 8 years of my life, I don't have any football memory. I got into football at about 10 years old, so that was 1990, 1989.
I was about 6, yeah. So Bryant was saying, I said on Beto's channel, he isn't sure on Sherman. Yeah, I think just like Aaron said, it's we're sure that he's a talent. We're just not sure that he has
a lot of knowledge
experience.
to give. But yeah, he's never been a coach. But I think he'd be a fantastic defensive backs coach. Fantastic.
Yeah. And then someday could be a DC for sure.
Yeah,
if he wants to put in all those hours and give up the limelight.
I think he does great on TV.
And stop talking on social media. Come on. That's never going to happen.
No, that's impossible.
Yeah. How much will Bosa get? Raphael wants to know.
He's going to have I would assume he's going to make close to $30 million a year, right?
Yeah.
30 to 35.
I think 30. Yeah. 30 men. Yeah. I think 32.
He said he doesn't necessarily, they made a point to say he necessarily doesn't want to be the highest paid, but he wants to stay here. I still think you got to pay him what he deserves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't expect that contract to get ready until literally training camp.
I did see that he said something in early December about, if he did get traded, he would want to go to a place with grass. And if we did switch to a 3-4, trading him might be an option, I think, because
that would be a bad move. That would be a bad move, Ted.
That's why I want to stay
that would be a franchise altering decision.
That's why I want to stay with the 4-3.
Right. That'd be like trading Charles Haley in his prime.
Yeah, it would be worse.
You know how stupid.
Because Bosa is a good guy, right? I mean,
Bosa's a great guy. He comes off like he's a freaking reefer head because of his personality.
Yeah,
but that's
he's not pissing on people's cars and stuff.
Yeah, if anything, I would love to see if we could bring his brother. But I told somebody, I was like, you know what? Probably not a good idea because he's literally always hurt, so he stays hurt. So,
and I should be a little nicer to Charles Haley. I mean, I don't think he's a bad guy. I think it was undiagnosed mental illness.
Yeah, he had mental illness. Yeah,
I think
coming from a guy who has a little bit of craziness. I'm not.
Yeah, me too.
I was never diagnosed with bipolar, but my dad had a lot of issues where he would be a real jerk and be really violent and disastrously mean, and then the next day would act like sheepishly shy and quiet and apologetic, and it was just like, so I get it's scary. It's almost like you have two different personalities, you know what I mean? Kind of almost schizo. Yeah. So I totally understand that.
Steve-O's saying 30 to 34.
I love Steve-O's got a freaking Trent Williams as his freaking profile pick. We need that. I hope Trent doesn't go bye-bye.
Oh, got a little visitor here. Hold on one sec while I take.
Oh my God, it's a mini Ted.
That's what I get for forgetting to lock the door.
Yeah,
Little guy's up from his
my
nap. That
brother's
was
cat
Ford.
is trying to come. Hey, his name's Ford. Awesome.
Yeah.
He's got some blonde hair, man.
Yeah,
Who
my
did he
wife
take?
has.
I was gonna say, did you take after your wife?
I had kind of like I had slightly darker blonde hair than that when I was a child.
I've literally
And my
had the
wife,
same red since I was a little kid.
If you look at pictures of me when I was a kid, I look like Opie Taylor. My mom used to, my hair was always like wet or like gelled or like wet looking. She always had it combed with the part on the side. Yeah, I was very much like your typical like nerdy redhead.
yeah, I didn't get dark until like late puberty, early 20s, and my wife is a little lighter than me, but he'll end up not that blonde as he gets older.
Yeah, my nieces were a lot blonder. They're becoming a little bit more dirty blonde as they've gotten older.
I hear you 100%.
But sucks, man. Like
no doubt about it.
I'm just not in the mood. I'm just not ready to talk. Like I do like talking off season, but it was like, man, we should be playing in this game, man. We deserve to be there, but it didn't happen.
No doubt about it. So, gentlemen on the panel, do you think about Kite? Do you think he cares about his quarterbacks? Kyle, do you think he cares about his quarterbacks? Yes or no? Well, that presser today was a little disturbing. I don't think he cares about Lance. I mean, I have to say, as a Shanna fan, like, I'm starting to get a little frustrated with the way it's like, oh, Lance is injury prone, but Brock, it's like, oh, just a fluke accident. He's totally healthy. When meanwhile, Brock got injured also before the Seattle game with his oblique. He didn't miss any time, but name a QB that hasn't been injured for us. The only one was Jimmy G in 2019. Other than that, we've had 2 or 3 QBs every year. This year, 4 or 5.
Yeah, that wasn't a good look for Kyle after that with that press conference. He seemed very dismissive.
No, and like I said, I'm a Kyle Shanahan fan.
So am I.
But that definitely eroded a little bit of my support for him, I will admit.
He definitely came off with the smartest kid in the room vibe. I know more than you, dumb person asking questions.
No doubt about it. Hope this offseason they get 3 more guys like that office to protect. I think he means offensive line.
Yeah.
To protect.
Yeah, we definitely have to do some work on that line for sure.
Yeah, we need a right guard, a right tackle probably to replace McGlinchey, who will probably get more than we can match on the open market.
Get off the team.
Brendel's done a nice job, especially in pass protection, but the run blocking has suffered. We need a better run blocking
center and right tackle are the 2 positions, and I definitely think we have to think about drafting a potential replacement at left tackle because of the talk of Trent Williams coming off where he didn't dismiss retirement. They did talk about in the press conference saying their whole indication is that he's coming back, but we know how that's went in the past before, so it was a weird press conference. It was like John Lynch was his normal, like, jovial, good guy. And then Kyle was just like so pissed off. I think Kyle's just like all the rest of us. Like, he knew he had the better team, probably left in the Final Four, and just it didn't equal us a championship. So it's probably not ready to talk off season either.
Yeah, no, that's brutal. And it is interesting. This is the 3-year out for Trent Williams, right? I mean, when we set up his deal, it was a 6-year deal, but essentially it was 2 3-year deals. And we had 2020, 2021, 2022. That's 3 years. So
they wouldn't be on the hook for anything.
I think it's like maybe 11 mil dead cap or something like that, but it's not as big as any of the years leading up to this. 11 mil for 3 years, and they could probably restructure that out over.
It's still a lot of money.
It is. But I mean, to have the best left tackle in football for 3 years, it was worth the risk, especially at the time. We thought we'd probably have a Super Bowl by now. Um, Bebop Jones is saying toughest game to watch, toughest conference championship for me to watch in my 45 years of watching football for sure.
Yeah, definitely. This one
Throwback.
there was no game. It was over.
Yeah.
You were literally, it was like bleeding out. Like you stuck somebody with something and you were just watching a slow bleed out. That's all it was.
Yeah.
You knew the end, you know what the end was, but it's still, you had to watch it.
It's a good analogy for sure. Throwback was saying, yay, happy Jimmy G isn't coming back. I'm not going to celebrate until he signs somewhere else, folks. I think if no one wants him and, he's super cheap, I think we'll definitely re-sign him. So I
don't want him. He needs to go away.
Anyone who knows me on the timeline knows. I mean, I got in a bunch of trouble.
Smiling.
I got a lot of grief from people for, saying like there was that picture of him smiling on the sideline, and I subtweeted it and said, actions speak louder than words. And I said, sometimes much louder or something like that. And people were like, well, Jimmy G, they just smiling. They took a joke. And I'm like, look, this isn't the first time. He did it after the Denver game. He does it after pressers when we lost. But it's not just after a loss. It's after a loss that he caused. That's when it really rubs me the wrong way. That's that, shit-eating, excuse my language, ear-to-ear grin.
He doesn't care, man. Football is not his end game.
Yeah.
There's guys like Brady. There's guys like Jordan when he played, or Jerry Rice, or athletes that were like, when they played, their career was everything. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't care. Doesn't care. Why would he? He made money. He made a freaking boatload of money off of 5 games. And if I was him, I would have took the money too. I'm not hating on him for taking the money. I'm just like, let's be honest here, like some people are like, oh, do you want somebody standing on the sideline looking miserable? I'd be miserable. Like if that was my last chance at something and I knew I was retiring, I would be depressed as hell. I wouldn't be smiling.
Exactly. I mean, I get a nervous smile here or there. It's just happened too many times with him. So and then well, Trey Lance was, and I'm just like, or Debo did it. And I'm like, look, Debo's freaking elite, man. And
Debo actually contributes to this team.
Yeah.
And does things.
Jimmy G is below average and injury prone. So it's not the same thing. And you don't see Debo doing that all the time. So it's just different to me. Rick was asking, those your kids or your grandson? No, that's my son. So hopefully he hasn't had any kids yet. He's only 3. So that would be not good. Steve says Jimmy gets hurt, injury. Yeah, the other QB's hurt. It's the O-line. Well, Steve-O, no, I mean, the O-line definitely doesn't pass block well for anybody. Not as well as they run block in general, other than like we just mentioned Zakelj. Or sorry, somebody has Zakelj in there. Other than Brendel is pretty good at pass blocking and not very good at run blocking. But most of the rest of our linemen, also Trent Williams is really good at pass blocking. But most of the rest were drafted or acquired for their run blocking talent more than their pass blocking talent.
I'm less worried about the offensive line than something. Well, I know whenever we decide to talk about the defensive line, but there's definitely okay, so like right tackle, I really don't want McGlinchey coming back. But you better have a better option, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Center is not like the most crazy thing. Like we need to have it right now. Plus, there are guys on the roster, I think, like Poe and maybe like Shaquille that could maybe eventually take over that position. And then, to me, the most important thing above all is we got to get help for Bosa on that defensive line.
Yeah. Defensive end.
It was Bosa and a bunch of just okay guys this year. And there was a stream that I did where everyone attacked me saying, what are you talking about? We have the best defensive line in the league. I'm like, no, we played the 2 best defensive lines in back-to-back games. We're not.
Yeah.
We have the best player in the league.
Yep.
Because Bosa's head and shoulders above everybody else. But it's Bosa, and I'm not going to say scrubs, but it's just a bunch of dudes that are kind of okay depth guys. They need another fantastic interior defensive tackle. not named Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw needs to take his ass out of here because he doesn't do anything. He can't rush the passer. And all of a sudden, he went from being decent in the run game to anchoring to now he's just getting blown left and right, upfield, whatever. And for the attitude that he has and the way he is and abrasive as he is, and for all that stuff that went on in the offseason, you thought he would have came out and blew the doors off. And once again, he was injured all year, So he to me, he's a bust. Even Larry Krueger said it. And I know a guy like Larry, who was once a scout, probably doesn't like calling guys that because that's a tough thing to title somebody. But if Larry Krueger says he's a bust, he's a bust. And so interior defensive tackle, and we need another guy on the edge. Whether it's, I would love to have a guy who just sits there and rushes the quarterback. Like he's a speed guy. Like he's a one trick. Okay, third down, here he comes. And
D Ford 2.0.
Yeah, like a D Ford type player. He doesn't need to be in. I know we have enough base down guys, but I want a guy that's going to come in and push the edge on the other side, and then none of
this tweener do it all like pure speed rush.
Like I'm a Menahue fan, but he's not great at either. He's just like kind of good. You know what I mean? And
now he's got that domestic violence charge. So
yeah, he's got a domestic violence charge. Abucom, he can go. He hasn't really done much. He's played okay, but if you look at any of these guys on the defensive line, Stead, does anybody stand out to you besides Bosa and Eric Armstead?
No, nobody. They're all, just you got your hider, you got your. I mean, Drake Jackson could turn into something, but I honestly thought he'd be farther along than he is by now.
He said his body broke down at the end of the year. What does that even mean?
Well, I think he's not used to playing many games. He had some injuries at USC and didn't play a lot of full 10-game seasons, let alone, what do we got? 17 and 3, 20-game season. So that's literally twice as many.
He looked
games.
A little chunky coming in this year. If you noticed did you watch him in the draft? And I was like, man, that guy's got some fat ass arms. I was like, is he sure he's an end? But I think off season for him in the weight room, working around a guy like Bosa, even though Bosa works off site. Like I said, they have good depth. They just need those horses. Like, okay, for instance, we had Armstead. We have Armstead, we had Buckner, Bosa, Ford, and then who was the other guy that we had? He got injured that year. He blew his knee out. He was part of that six. I forget his name.
There was Ronald Blair. And there was also DJ Jones got injured towards the end as well.
Yes, he had Ronald Blair.
Neither of them played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so he had Ronald Blair, DJ Jones, and then you had mainly the four guys. Like that was just an insanely good pass rush when everyone was healthy. And it's been hard to watch games sometimes because it's like Bosa, if the teams do their best to try to, take advantage of his aggressiveness and, get him out of plays, and no one else is stepping up. So yeah, I would love to see the defensive line get some love. And we have enough third round picks. We have $16 million in cap to start with. I'm sure we could do some restructuring. I think the Niners, do you think the Niners maybe go after maybe someone in free agency, like a defensive tackle, and then maybe draft somebody in the mid rounds on the outside? Or do they how would you see them going about trying to solve? Because I mean, they've got to be seeing the same things, right?
I mean, I think you got to package some picks and move up. I don't think you can wait till the end of the third round, which is when our comp picks come in,
right,
to find a good defensive end.
Right.
So yeah, I think you either got to do it free agency, but then you're paying a ton of dough that we just don't have. So maybe a trade. I don't know. But then who do you trade? I don't know. I've seen people say Debo. I really don't want to lose him.
No, I don't want to. You can't lose.
But I also I saw. Well, I don't want to talk about. Somebody DM'd me something about him, and I just don't know if they're a credible source, and if the person they talk to is a credible source. So I'll leave it at that and just say I don't know. But yeah, we definitely need at least depth at defensive end because Amanahu is a free agent. Ebicom's a free agent. Jordan Wallace is a free agent. So we're going to lose likely quite a bit of depth. Plus the the speed rusher we never had, we probably still need. Yeah.
Is it really a loss though? Because if you look at any of those guys, did those guys stand out to you this year as like, we gotta keep?
No, not got it. But at a reasonable price. I like.
No, I mean, I would keep Arden Key.
I had a Menahu on my list.
I would keep a Menahu, but you can. I mean, well, what's his name can walk. Ebicom can walk.
Ebicom, yeah. But the problem with keeping a Menahu now is he's got that domestic violence charge,
right?
And until that's settled, you don't know what's going to happen there. It sounded like kind of pretty innocuous, but because the girl didn't, the girlfriend,
domestic violence to me, I don't care what the situation is. It's just bad all around.
It is. It's just a bad look. It's I mean, she didn't file a medical report, at the scene, but she could have done one after. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But hopefully we don't take a risk on it, because it'd be terrible to commit to him, then have that pop up, and then we're out a guy that we're counting on. Rick was saying, that's right. Agree with you. Jimmy doesn't care about us, doesn't care about nothing at all. Yeah, no, Jimmy G, he's gotten his bag, and he's a happy footloose fella for sure. And that's why I had issue with him, with the ear to ear, eating grin on the sideline that we've just seen.
He always has that eating grin all the time. Hey, we're losing the Super Bowl 50 to we're losing the Super Bowl 55-10 like the Broncos, but Jimmy's smiling. Yeah, but he's not. Oh, that's infuriating. My nephew doesn't like the midfield trading of jerseys, and he's a younger cat, and he usually disagrees with me because I'm old and curmudgeon-y, but he hates it. I hate it. It's like they're the enemy. They need to be treated as such. Oh, Ted froze. No. Stand by, people. We have some technical difficulties. Are we resigning Gold? That would be a good question. Do you guys want to keep him? I would say, why not? Keeping Gold would be a good move. I mean, unless there's something better out there, why not bring him back? But he's probably going to command a lot of money. Yeah, Ted is frozen. Gold said unfinished business, so hopefully, yeah, I saw that too. Unfinished, yeah, coming from a kicker, yeah, that always. Yeah. Hold on, my friends. Checking router. Yeah, he's apparently having some internet issues. I can't kick him either, so you don't get to see my ugly face on the screen. Bill wanted to was a genius. He knew what he was doing. Yeah, Bill Walsh was one of the greatest coaches of all time. No question in my mind. So yeah. Yeah, if Gold wants to come back, he's going to have to come back at a reasonable price, because Niners have a lot more what do you call fish to fry than just resigning a kicker. Like I said, the defensive tackle definitely a priority, defensive end priority. Get another coach in the NBA. Phil Jackson took the shot. What would you pay for a kicker? I don't know, $5 million a year, maybe. That's what I think they were paying him anyways, right? 5 to 6 to 8, something like that. Pretty good chunk of change. I always thought he wanted to be in Chicago. I never thought he wanted to be here, because he made some rumblings before saying that, he wanted to stay, or he wanted to go back home. And then the Niners overpaid for him and kept him here. And I hate guys staying only for money. If you don't want to be here, get the hell out. So, yeah. Who will be the running back 2? It's a good question. I love Elijah Mitchell to death, but he cannot be counted on. I guess we'll find out in the draft, guys. See if the Niners go after another late round running back. Or maybe it's Jordan Mason. Who knows? Elijah Mitchell just cannot be counted on. He's fragile. Simple as that. Steve Osabrimo, hopefully Davis and Drake Lenore work out so we can focus on fullback and safety in the future. Yeah, gotta love internet.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It says I'm connected now. I was just trying to look up my password for my other Wi-Fi. I got one that's like, just the router and one that's like the extension.
Yeah.
Anyway, it came back. So sorry about that.
They were talking about kicker and Robbie and does he come back? You can't spend a crap load on a kicker, but he is. I would assume he's the best out there, even though he doesn't have much range anymore.
I mean, he's never missed a kick in the playoffs. That's got to be worth something.
To me, if he's willing to negotiate and doesn't want to freaking have all the money in the world and maybe come back on a team friendly deal, then yeah, I'd keep him for a couple of years.
It's just hard because neither he nor Wisnowski can kick the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs. So like,
isn't it something? It's pathetic.
So that's my only real knock. And he's no good. You can't do over 53 yards with him. So you miss out on those 55, 60. Some of these guys are hitting from 65 now. Or 60 plus.
The problem with us not being able to kick out of the back of the end zone is infuriating as hell, because every team, what happens is you don't get enough air on it, so you get a lot of line drive kicks where the blocking hasn't even got, or the guys haven't even got down there to cover, and you have guys running scot free for 20 yards before somebody touches them. It's freaking infuriating. And then you got the other team kicking them out of the back of the end zone every play. So yeah, it is. It's kind of like, you got to live with what they can't do, because the alternative might be someone who's less talented and less someone you can count on less. Like it would be, we kind of know what we get from Gold. He'll miss some kicks that don't matter, but then when you need him, he always makes them. So I don't know. Bring him back on a cheaper deal. If he wants to get paid like he's the greatest thing ever, then I'd say, kick rocks or whatever. Just score more touchdowns.
There you go. No doubt about it. So yeah, other key things like for draft or free agency, I still want another tight end, to go with Kittle.
Yes, I would definitely love another tight end, another multi-dimensional tight end. Maybe somebody who's a late rounder who needs a little bit of refinement but has an ability to catch the ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't put a lot of money into their tight ends past Kittle, and I really think they should. One, for another pass catcher, and two, I mean, Tyler Kroft. I mean, what the hell was that, dude? You got your quarterback. You got your quarterback injured. You know what I mean? So
yeah, brutal. And then you brought up Kinlaw. I wonder like what the option is there, because he's on a 4-year fully guaranteed contract. So I mean, I think we see him in 2023.
I do too. I think he comes back, but to depend on him to be your starter,
right?
I just don't think so.
No, you're right. You're right.
He's not starting material. He doesn't either well.
He's not.
He can push the pocket sometime in the run game, but he's in pass. He doesn't have any pass rush skills. It's amazing how big he is, man.
Yeah.
He looks like male perfection as far as genetically, but yet he plays like a chihuahua. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
He's too tall, and he can't get a low center of gravity. He plays too tall. He is tall, and he plays too tall.
Give me a squatty, short, 380-pound nose tackle who anchors against the run and allows and doesn't necessarily have pass rush skills, but can push the pocket.
Just keep our linebackers clean, right?
That's because we got these great linebackers. They shouldn't have to always come up in the run game to smack down run plays. What's going on, Mariah? I hope you're feeling better. I saw you posted the other day. I'm right there with you, my sister.
I'm on the tail end. I think, knock on wood, I think I'm almost over the. I've had something for a little over a week here. Got real bad, of course, on Sunday and Monday were the two worst days.
I'm thinking of doing. Speaking of Mariah, I want to get her, Gina repping the Bay, and maybe the ladies from Touchdowns and Tight Ends. I want to do like a roundtable discussion, but with mostly lady content creators. something different, or I'd be the only guy. But not in a weird way, maybe like almost like a master of ceremonies type thing. I just think it's cool. If not, because I don't, it's weird. Because if you have a bunch of guys in like a round table and then you have like one female in it, it always comes off kind of creepy. So I feel like if you can have a lady on the stream, have a bunch of them. So then the guy, even if I'm the one who's at disadvantage as far as numbers, I don't feel as creepy being like me and a bunch of other people and then one lady. So yeah. Just like I said,
Suprema's got an idea. Maybe Olsen comes back since Brady's taking his job in the booth.
maybe about
I
5
would
years
love
ago,
Greg
I would
Olsen.
have said, yeah, Olsen would have been an awesome tight end on the Niners, but those days are past.
Yeah,
He looks very, square jawed and in shape, being a freaking announcer. Why would he want to jeopardize his body anymore? I wouldn't.
No doubt about it. I'm sure someone else will hire him to be an announcer for a different network. So where are we? I mean, so we're talking free agents, we're talking draft priorities.
Another question I was asked is who's our running back number 2 next year? That's a good question.
It's not Mitchell. You can't.
Elijah Mitchell
count on
cannot be
him.
counted on. He can't.
No.
He can't play more than 2 games in a row without hurting himself.
Somebody brought up you should be able to bring up IR people for the playoffs, and that was my beef of Elijah Mitchell being our 8th IR spot. Was like I had no faith in him to stay healthy for the playoffs. It's just weird that he got injured running out of bounds against Dallas. Like he avoided contact. And that's probably not where he got injured, but what it did was it forced us to keep playing. Then he got a couple more carries. He probably got injured on one of those 2 carries that he had after that. But it just illustrates why a boneheaded play puts the team in jeopardy. Turned out he put himself in jeopardy by making a terrible play.
I mean, Jordan Mason seems like a good back, but can he be counted on to be the number 2? TDP seems more like a grinder. I don't see him as a full-time running back.
Now, maybe a full back someday if he can get a little bit bigger.
Right. Tevin Coleman, I don't see him coming back unless they just keep him on, they just keep him floating around the franchise and come back next year when we have, 4 injuries to running back. To me, the Niners are definitely drafting a running back this year.
Yeah.
I think the Niners, and they're gonna bring in somebody from undrafted free agent too. You can bet your bottom dollar it's gonna happen. I love Elijah Mitchell, but we get 4 games out of him a year. That's it. 4 to 6. Sorry, we play like more than 7. We play more than 17 games, man. That doesn't cut the mustard, man. You got to be able to be available, and it sucks.
The best ability is availability, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think running back makes sense. Tight end, right tackle, center.
Another corner.
Definitely another corner. Probably another safety.
Yep.
Maybe even a linebacker. I don't know about draft, but develop a linebacker as well.
What about McCrary Ball?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen good things. Oren Burks played well, but he'll probably price himself out due to his special teams expertise. I think we only signed him for 1 season, so I think he'll bounce, would be my thought. But and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles doesn't seem like he's ever going to be really full starter material.
Yeah, he comes off as like a special teams or a backup. Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah. I mean, Aziz is amazing.
Yeah.
It's too bad that we won't be able to keep him. Then again,
I'm sure
with him not getting a lot of play this year, maybe they can afford to bring him back.
Holds out hope for sure.
Because the Niners play mostly 2 linebackers in a nickel formation, right? When they play base, he's the only time he's in.
Right, exactly. So that's going to be 1st and 10 and 2nd and long.
The only way I could see him going is if like a team short, like Miami needs somebody, or a team like the Houston Texans take him, go down there with maybe like a guy like Ward or something. But we'll see. Hopefully they can keep him. My brother said he wouldn't mind him on the Dolphins, and I'm like, he's a pretty good tackler. He's not a bad linebacker. He's overshadowed by probably two of the best linebackers in the NFL. So I would say he's a little slightly above average skill wise. He's not like elite. I think he's a good tackler. I think he's a good hitter. He's not as good in coverage as say like Greenlaw, but who is? So
True. No, it's gonna be sad to lose him because I do think we will. And Brunskill is a free agent too. I think we'll probably be able to hold on to him because we kind of hit him for the most part this year, except for when Aaron Banks got injured and he filled in really well for Aaron Banks there for a few games. That might have signed his ticket to out of town.
I wouldn't mind keeping Brunskill as long as he plays a backup role. Don't ever bring him in to be anything more than that.
Do you think McKibbitz could be our right tackle?
I hope not. Because if he was so good, why didn't he take over this year? You know?
Yeah.
Is McGlinchey that much better than him, or were you really just hiding him? And I knew the Niners like the red shirt, kind of in a way. So the Niners have some players that, like Kalia Davis is definitely a player. I keep talking about defensive line. I would love to see what Kalia Davis can offer next year. So we forget about that. I forget about that. McCrary Ball. We have another DB. I forget his name.
Kalia could be that sort of nose tackle guy we're looking for, the DJ Jones clone. He's a little bit better of a pass rusher, or at least that's the comp on him, is that he's a little bit better of a pass rusher than DJ Jones. Maybe not quite the run stuffer that DJ is and was. But yeah, Kalia Davis could be an answer for us for sure. And maybe Drake Jackson will be too. I don't know, but I think we need more bodies in there.
Drake Jackson needs refinement. He needs to get in the weight room. He needs to develop more pass rush moves. You can't just be a one-trick pony. Bosa, the reason Bosa is so good is he's so multiple in what he can do. He can bull rush, he can spin move, he can stunt, he can do everything. Bosa's the reason Bosa was so highly touted coming out of college is he was so refined as a rookie, where some people don't get that refined for 5 years into their career. So, yeah, Samuel Womack, Quantrez Knight is the guy. Raphael, thank you. He had a pretty good preseason. So
he did, out of UCLA, and he is supposedly very versatile. He can supposedly play boundary corner, nickel corner, and safety.
I noticed when the Niners have a pass rush, their defensive backs look a whole hell of a lot better. Sometimes this year, a lot of people were like bagging on the DBs, but like there was just the quarterback sat all day. You know what I mean? If Bosa's not getting in there, I mean, I don't care what kind of corner you are. If you have to cover for 7 to 8 seconds, you're beat, dude. I don't care if you're Dion. I mean, maybe Dion can cover you, but that's about it. Because he can run like a 4-2-3. But it's funny, in the NFC Championship game, the two of them played really well, Lenore and Javarius Ward. So, I mean, hopefully we can bring back Mosley. I think the Niners will. I have a feeling they will. As a cheap deal. So, but you can't count on these guys, though. If anything, I would maybe start Lenore as your other corner next year and have maybe, have Mosley as your bubble wrapped corner, kind of like what we wanted to do this year with Verrett. Verrett, I think needs to retire. It's over, man. You had a good run, bro. Your body's not meant for it, and that's okay.
Yeah. Eman's never played a full season. I don't think he's ever played, more than 13 or 14 games in a season. So durability has been an issue for him. Usually not, catastrophic injuries like this ACL that he had, but stuff here and there has kept him out of games every single season that he's been a full-time starter for us.
And Mosley's a small guy, and he was relatively healthy this year. So the Niners are not necessarily in need of a ton of talent, but they need some pieces to get them a little bit even better than what they were this year. They need more pass rush or more cowbell, whatever you want to say. They need an interior defensive lineman. They need another cowbell. Yeah, not too much though. They need an interior defensive lineman. They need a rusher. I think they could address corner, center, and right tackle. Those are and it's all doable. Little free agency, a little draft, and you're good to go. This Niners team isn't far away from winning, Ted. It just We got to hold out hope that that injury is the prior and not the latter. Because I reported on my channel today, based on the reports that were all over Twitter, that it was going to be Tommy Johns. He's gone for a whole full season. He won't be back till 2024. And then in the press conference, you had a whole other freaking, like, they know more, right? They do. I mean, of course they know more. So I was like, maybe that guy. I did say something on Twitter where people were saying people were running with stuff that wasn't necessarily 100% accurate. So maybe I bit the proverbial fake carrot or something. But
yeah, but ultimately, it's a completely torn UCL. So, I mean, and so that means a reconstruction, not a repair, is my understanding. And so I think Kyle might be bluffing. You know how he is. He always wants every advantage. I don't think he wants us going into the draft with people knowing that we're going to draft a QB.
True.
I until I hear that he's really okay or see him practicing to start coming back, I'm going to have my doubts.
Yeah, I would say these next couple weeks, when he finally gets a final opinion, are crucial. If they really say that he's only going to be out 6 months, then that's great. Yeah. That means he can take the starter's job. I love Trey Lance to death, but I mean, thing with Trey Lance is he's learning on the go. He's going to have to up his level of play to Purdy. I hate to say this, but to Purdy's where Purdy was this year. We can't have you fumbling around and dicking around and not playing up to the level of a starting quarterback. I know you don't have the requisite time in the lab like he did, but I mean, you have all the talent, you have more talent physically, so figure out a way to be better. I don't know.
I agree that Brock, if he's healthy for OTAs, should be the presumptive starter for the team. I do think it should be a competition, and I do think it should be possible for Lance to beat out Brock before the season starts. I don't think that necessarily will happen, but I just caution people who make the comparison between the two QBs. We have not seen Trey Lance with Christian McCaffrey, and we know what a difference maker he is. We have barely seen Trey Lance with Kittle. It was a half where Kittle was injured against the Seahawks, and one game against the Texans that we won that game. And the other thing is just more holistically about the team. The team was struggling before and after Trey Lance lost the games he lost, and the team was struggling when the team wasn't struggling. He won. So that's all I'll say. I'm not going to say that, I do think Trey Lance will be the QB1 for this team at some point, whether that's week 1 of 2023. That seems doubtful if Brock Purdy really is back in 3 to 6 months.
Looks like Joey Mahoney agrees more with you. I'm going based on what Kyle said in the presser. I'm not going off my own, ridiculous assumptions. I reported the Tommy Johns thing on a short on my channel because I saw the report like everybody else. But Kyle, like you said, he might be playing, possum here. But I'm hoping that he doesn't have to miss 12 months because, it sucks. It sucks because I hate to say this, Purdy's more of a sure thing than Lance right now because we saw what he could do. And as a team that's kind of built for now, you want a sure thing. I want Lance to be the greatest freaking quarterback ever, but it's just the fact that he just hasn't played. And you can't wait for that, unfortunately, when you have a ready-made team, unless he just comes in and blows the doors off. Maybe Trey Lance. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say my thing is we know Trey Lance has the higher ceiling. And at some point, we're going to need a QB with a higher ceiling once we pay Bosa and we lose some of these weapons and the defense isn't number 1 in the league anymore. It's unrealistic to think that we can sustain this excellence around our quarterback for too much longer, even with the low paid QB room.
Right.
Once Bosa goes from, $9 million a year, or whatever he's making, 8 to 30, 35.
No, I agree with Mahoney though, champ. He's like, I'm just saying Tommy John surgery. No, I agree with you. It's
the other thing too is Tommy John surgery. Okay, we know what to expect, and a lot of times
we come back with a stronger arm.
They come back with a stronger arm, but I've never heard that for quarterbacks.
Right.
I know that Mullins tore his UCL against Dallas in 2020 very similar. DeMarcus Lawrence beat McGlinchey off the right edge, and he came and Mullins had his right hand, and DeMarcus Lawrence hit it. Oops, whoa, I hit my mic. And that wasn't a complete tear, and he was able to get a repair. It wasn't Tommy John, but it wasn't a complete tear like what Purdy has. But I don't know that Mullins has ever gotten back to what he was, which was never that great to begin with. I know Big Ben had it and didn't look good after, but Big Ben was a lot older. I looked it up and I saw that Carson Palmer had it. So I'm assuming his went well because I think he played pretty well right up to the end of his career, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, he had a pretty decent arm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big guy and a big arm out of USC. And then another one I saw was, I think it was Jake Delhomme or Jake Plummer. I think it was Jake the Snake Plummer, not Jake Delhomme. Whoever was better. Jake Plummer was the better of those two, if I'm not mistaken. So, and anyway, I'm not as familiar with it, but it seems like, I mean, we have to be prepared for the reality that Brock Purdy may never be back to what we saw this season. And with any major surgery, that's a possibility. I don't know what the success rate is with Tommy John on NFL quarterbacks, but I just know that we haven't seen a lot of it.
And he also doesn't have the leeway to where we
Correct.
think about
to
him
lose a little bit of strength.
Well, no, not just
like
that he becomes
he has a
the
lot
guy.
of arm strength to where he could compensate for it either. He was already kind of using everything.
But he was a 7th round pick, so that the Niners didn't invest as much as did into Lance. So Lance, if he had suffered a similar injury, the Niners, a year from now would still be trying to get him back in there. Whereas someone like Purdy, he might never see the starter role again if he misses a complete season. But
yeah, and obviously throwing a football is very different than throwing a baseball.
Right.
Football is much larger and more cumbersome, more difficult to throw than a baseball, at least to throw the same distance. You can throw a baseball much farther than a football. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But my gut is telling me 9 to 12 months, which would be November of 2023 to right around now, February of 2024, if it's 12 months.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's if he makes it back all the way anyway. So
right,
knock on wood, I'm hoping for the best for Brock. I'm super happy with what he did for us, and I hope he's there at OTAs. I hope he's there for preseason whenever, and wishing him the best.
Definitely.
On a good note, this is our low. Imagine being Browns, Raiders, Chicago fans, etc.
True.
Yeah, no, I mean we've made the NFC Championship game 3 out of 4 years, the Super Bowl once. We've got a good young core. Other than Trent Williams is getting up there a little bit. Kittle and Jimmy Ward are both 29, but Jimmy Ward's like 31. But I think we're assuming he's gone.
Yeah.
As Kittle and who on the defense are 29? I'm blanking. Maybe it's Armstead. Armstead, yeah, and Kittle are both 29. So, but the rest are mostly like 26. Debo's 27. The rest are 26, 25, 24. And we got the 2 young QBs, so that's always good.
Word is bond.
Yeah, I know Tommy John makes your arm stronger if it's successful for baseball. I've never heard that for football, and so that's
it's definitely a different entity in itself.
Sure. Yeah, somebody was like, "Oh yeah, throwing a football is just like throwing a slider." I'm like, "No, absolutely, it's not." I've never seen a pitcher come and throw a football, like that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but hopefully it's not Tommy John. Hopefully not. Knock on wood. And if Brock has to miss a good portion, do you think they bring Jimmy back? Like I said, I think if nobody else wants Jimmy and he's cheap, they might bring him back. My buddy John, who's been on a few times, he's the season ticket holder I go to a lot of the games with. He seems to think the Raiders are going to pick up Jimmy because of the Josh McDaniel connection, and that he can scheme up sort of like that old Patriot style offense where honestly Jimmy's kind of better at that than Kyle's offense. And they've got the weapons. I keep saying, like, I wish Jimmy well, but there's no way he'll do very well on his next team without, Kittle, Debo, CMC, Ayuk, Juice Check, all are amazing weapons. But the Raiders have, Devontae Adams, they have Waller, they have Renfro, and they have the league leading rusher, Josh Jacobs. So they got a hell of a group of weapons there. And if that offense was a little more well suited to his strengths, maybe he could have some success. The one thing the Raiders don't have is a defense to where they're going to need him to be pressing. He won't be able to be as conservative with the Raiders as he was able to be with us because we were almost never behind by a lot.
Right. And even he was conservative. He was still throwing interceptions. So
get out of here, Jimmy. That was the best part of the presser for sure, was when Kyle said, I don't see any way that he comes back.
Yeah, that was great. That was
great. He's been waiting a while. He's been waiting a while to say that. So
that's why I say that he might have news that we don't. But yeah, 49 re-sign Jennings. Absolutely. I love Juwan Jennings.
That's a good point, Aaron. And something I hadn't considered, that, that does lend more credibility to the Purdy being back. Maybe he's misinformed, and that's why he's able to say it. And as soon as he finds out that Purdy's gone for a year, then all of a sudden,
that's kind of like the thing that had me thinking that maybe they knew more than we do. And maybe
it's
not. And if they do know more and he is going to be back in 6 months, then I could understand the Garoppolo comment, because if that's not the case, then you would have to consider bringing back Jimmy again.
No doubt about it. I have no doubt they know more than us. I just know that they know better than to, tell too much.
Yeah.
That they don't have to. I mean, Kyle always waits till the last second to make any announcement, whether it's inactives or, injury reports during the week. It always comes out at the 11th hour, because he wants to give the opponents as little of advantage as possible. So so I know I want to be mindful of your time, Aaron. I know you got to get going.
Yeah, I actually got to eat dinner very soon.
Eat some dinner. Yeah, and I need to get rolling myself here. So I appreciate you coming on. Tough week, obviously.
Yes.
And as far as other things you got going this week, do you want to tell people what you got coming up?
Really, I just have the Friday show with Beto and Wolf and Amin, and hopefully Raj will jump on with us. If not, I'll try to see if I can grab another special guest. It's going to be more of the same, just kind of looking into the next year, kind of looking back on this year, kind of really just finalizing our feelings about how everything ended. And, looking forward to the combine, looking forward to the draft, looking forward to free agency. There is stuff to look forward to. It's just not a Super Bowl. So
yeah, no doubt about it. That's sad for sure. Tomorrow I've got a couple shows coming up. I was just trying to do two things at once here. Let me just finish one thing. My apologies. So tomorrow I've got Paul Hope coming on at noon Pacific time, and Lawrence Jackson Jr. at 2:05, and Jason Hurley at 3. And right now, might do some shows for Friday afternoon. Also, Coach Yak, maybe tomorrow morning. I haven't heard back. He might already be back to me in my DMs. We'll see about that. That could be tomorrow morning early, about 8:15 Pacific. But anyway, I hope you feel better, and heal up quickly from whatever's ailing you.
Same.
And thanks. I seem to be on the tail end of it, but
me, it's more the knee and just my physically not feeling right because of the knee. And not having
the
state
get the state of New York.
Yeah, can they get back to me so I could have surgery, please?
Together.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I've been out of work 2 months and nothing's happened. This is insane.
No doubt. That's wild for sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on as always.
Yes, sir.
And everybody, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And are they going to see us next week, Aaron? Are we going to do a show next week?
We'll have to think of something. Yeah. You're going to run out of topics for a bit.
Maybe we'll cut it down to half an hour or something.
I don't know. We'll have to figure something out. Maybe we go every other week or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, TBD on First and Ted for next week. We'll announce it on Twitter and on YouTube and let everybody know how we're feeling. But thanks to everybody for tuning in today. We appreciate it. And look forward to catching up with everybody soon. just remember the Niners will be back. It's a tough loss, but this team is resilient, and more good things to come next year. I think we'll be right back here again this time next year.
Definitely. I do too. See you guys.
Chiefs, take care, everybody.